Get ready.
Did you see Rob?
Of course.
Test.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Bob McDonald. I'm the president of Rotary Johns Creek, North Fulton. I want to welcome We are one of 3 sponsors sponsoring tonight's debate. Besides Rotary, we have Appen Media. Patrick, you want to say hi? And we have Student Leadership Johns Creek. What you guys are saying? I want to thank all of our sponsors for making tonight possible, but I also want to thank the Standard Club for making this beautiful venue available. And a special thank you to the Moxie Band for providing the sound system. No music, no bands, but the sound systems. Thank you very much. So let's start with an introduction of the candidates. Running in post 1 is Shir Chin Yang. You can stand up. Okay. And Lindy Zebrowski. For post 3, we have Vicki Horton, right over here. John Bradbury. And Mark Benko. For post 5, we have Stephanie Andres. And Chris Jackson. And for mayor, we have Mike Bodker. Alex Marchetti. Welcome to you all. We also want to introduce our distinguished panel of moderators who will be asking all the questions tonight. Allow me to introduce them briefly. We have Hatcher Hurd, Johns Creek Herald. Stand up, please. Say hi. Mike Pachenik with WSB TV. He is sending a camera to film tonight's debate. They're stuck in traffic. And then Karen Greer with CBS 46 News. So thank you all very much for giving me time for this evening's debate. And finally, I want to introduce Student Leadership Johns Creek. They're going to be the timekeepers. They're going to make sure that these candidates don't go 1 second over the time allotment. And I'm going to introduce Manisha Kedmiri, who will explain exactly how that timekeeping is going to work and introduce the other members.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, hello, my name is Manisha Kudamuri and I'm a member of Student Leadership of Johns Creek. Tonight, we will be timing for you, so we will make sure that all of the candidates adhere to all the time limits, and Mr. Bob will go over all of the time limits for you, but just so everyone knows, it's 2 minutes for the opening statements, 1 minute to answer the question, 1 minute for the answer to the answer, and 20 seconds for the rebuttal, and 30 seconds for the follow-up question, and 1 minute for the 30 seconds for the closing statement. The other timers will be Adiva Dutta, Sarah McWhirter, and Olivia Logan. So. Let's have a good debate, yeah? Yes, when time is up, I will stand up 5 seconds before time is actually called, and when time is actually up, I will verbally say that time is up. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's review the format and the rules for tonight's debate. So as we mentioned earlier, we're going to start with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. Candidates from post 1 will then debate. They'll come up on stage together, followed by post 3, post 5, and the mayoral candidates. We'll then wrap up with a 30-second closing statement from each candidate. Hatcher Hurd is going to facilitate the questioning and will call the candidates to the microphone. Each moderator, each of the 3 moderators will ask 1 question of each candidate. So that's 3 questions per candidate from each moderator. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question, with a 1 minute for a counter response and 20 seconds for a rebuttal. The moderators will be allowed to ask one follow-up question for each race. The candidates will have 30 seconds to respond to that follow-up question. There will be no counter response. We have 3 candidates running for post 3, so we're going to use the ABC system. Before they come up on stage, they're going to pick out of my pocket. Well, maybe not out of my pocket. But they're going to pick either letter A, B, or C. Candidate A will get the first question. Candidate B will respond to candidate A. Then candidate A will give the rebuttal. Then candidate B will get the second question. Candidate C will respond to candidate B, and so forth until we cycle through all the candidates. And it doesn't look like that's the case, but if we only had 1 candidate per race, we would be allowed to ask 2 questions from each moderator. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Hatcher.
The mayoral candidates will come forward, please. Actually, if you would stand on the stage, that's people in the back can see you better. And before we begin, Alex Marchetti has a statement to read.
Thank you. Thank everyone for coming this evening. I want to make an announcement. I deeply regret it. However, I'm going to announce that I am withdrawing my candidacy for mayor of Johns Creek. Some unexpected personal and professional issues have arisen that will not allow me to competently perform the duties of that office. I sincerely want to thank the people who have supported my campaign, and I want to extend my support to Mr. Bacher as he continues to work to unite the city and foster the residents' first platform that I promoted in my campaign. I want to thank everybody. Thank you.
All right, Mayor, you don't get off that easy. We're going to go with, I believe it was 2 questions. We'll just do 2 opening statement first, correct. You have a 2-minute opening statement.
Okay. Well, first I want to congratulate Alex. We had a discussion before this campaign started. We agreed that the campaign was going to be about the issues, and I believe we've both stuck to that. It's been a long time in Johns Creek since a council or mayor's race was strictly about the issues, and I commend Alex for walking the high road, and I hope you've seen the same from me. You'll continue to see that for the next 4 years. In terms of my priorities, they really haven't changed, but specifically I'm going to focus on a very careful partnership with our citizens to implement our T-SPLOS projects in a way that will protect our residential character, to focus on the implementation of both our new parks and the refreshing of our old parks through your Parks Bond referendum that you passed last November, to focus on the comp plan to make sure that it really truly represents the will of the citizens, which I believe very clearly demonstrates to date that you want to protect the residential character of this community. And then finally, to focus on the thing that really underlies everything within our city, and that is to make sure that we continue to adhere to sound fiscal policy, because without that, everything else sort of falls apart. So that's what I'll be focusing on for what will be my last 4 years in office. I have announced that this will be my last term, and it has truly been a humbling experience to serve you for what will be 15 years at the city of Johns Creek, and we will work very hard to make sure that this city is left in good hands.
All right, candidates for post 1, Isher Chen Yang and Lindy Zebrowski.
So that means I get off, no questions?
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, you're off now.
Excellent. Thank you.
2-minute opening statements. Ms. Yang, go ahead.
The first. Not as tall as Mike. Anyway, I want to introduce myself. I haven't had the pleasure to meet everyone, but my name is Isher Yang, and I am running for Post 1. I have been a longtime resident here, and as I've walked around, I've learned that everyone wants the best for Johns Creek. That's what we all want. We want the best for Johns Creek. We may not agree on how we're going to get there, but we all want the best for Johns Creek, and that is why I'm running. I'm running because we need to resolve traffic. We need to work on comp plan, making sure that it's what the residents want. And we also need to make sure that we have control on spending, and we spend appropriately for the residents. And that is why I'm running, because I want to make sure that we do what the residents want, and I want to give the residents a voice. So hopefully that's what you see. And thank you for allowing me to run, and thank you everyone here for coming. And let the games begin, I guess.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone, the Rotary and everyone, student leadership. Karen, you live here. Hatcher, you're here all the time. Mike, I told you, it's good to see you under these circumstances. Usually when you're here, we don't want you here because you're doing some kind of story on us. But we love to have you, so thanks for coming. I'm Lindy Zebrowski. Been a 37-year resident of this community. I do love it. I've been working for this community for a long time. I started off coaching youth sports, feeder teams. I got involved with a student governance committee, served on the BZA, now on council for 4 years. So I'm humbly asking for your vote for one more 4-year term. After that, I promise to go away with the mayor if I'm elected. And maybe you'll like that, maybe you won't. I will say this, I'm pledging to do a few things with you if I'm reelected. First, I pledge to work with you to get this comp plan through. I've been on the CAC committee, and we have been listening to you, and I think we're finally getting it right, and we're going to keep this a premier residential veteran community. I pledge to work with you on the parks plan. We need to get our parks. We bought a lot of land, now we need to use it. So I pledge to try to push those things forward. I pledge to listen to you. I pledge to be fiscally responsible. I pledge to be transparent. I think I've been that way. I've tried to be a voice of the people and listen and be honest as I can. My reputation is very important to me, so I'll just leave it at that because it's been attacked lately, I think unfairly. I will pledge to keep our police and fire, public safety with the equipment they need to keep us the safest city. I pledge to help what I can do for the schools to keep our schools safe. It's so important to keep our schools where we are. It's an important part of our community, and we don't have a lot to do with it, but I'll keep doing that. I pledge to be a conduit for you, and I'm humbly asking for your vote on November 7th.
Ms. Yang, you would step back to the microphone.
Oh, are we already started?
Oh, no, that's right. We still got to get everyone introduced. I'll get it right by the end of the day. Okay.
So we're off?
You're off.
Yes.
So,
Mike's sitting down there.
Post
Happy now.
3, John Barry, Brad Barry, Vicki Horton, and Mark Wilco. They left you the few.
Okay. Hi, my name is John Bradbury. Nice to see all of you. It's good to be at the Standard Club and with the Rotary. This is actually the place that I've had my one and only golf lesson. The instructor would not be proud. So it's good to see a lot of friends and familiar faces. Many of you have been at all 3 of these debates. And it's certainly good when you come out and you're educating yourself. It is, as voters, we have to ask ourselves, we always are telling you about our experience. And as a voter, you have to think about, well, is that experience going to be for the benefit of the residents of Johns Creek? I believe that Johns Creek is at a crossroads. I love Johns Creek, but we have to decide, are we going to go down the path of resigning ourselves to a nondescript, increasingly urbanized area, or will we jealously guard our premier veteran community that has been the source of our good, that has been the source of so much good for our quality of life? When you hear a candidate talk about their experience, you have to ask, is that the right experience? If it's commercial and business interest experience, is that the right experience for the residents of Johns Creek? I believe that we need a strong residential advocate. I've been an outspoken advocate for the residents of Johns Creek. I founded Preserve Johns Creek so that we could fight to maintain Johns Creek as a premier veteran community. Thank you. I appreciate your support.
I'm tall, but I'm not quite that tall. Vicki Horton, running for Post 3. Again, thank you all for being here, and it's great to see so many folks, both at this debate and the other 3, that are so interested in what we need to do, because we have a lot of work to do. For myself, just really quickly on my background, I'm from Ohio originally. I've been in Atlanta 20 years, and about half of that time in Johns Creek. I have a daughter, she's 7, she'll be 8 in January, and so really watching her grow up and getting to a point where you start to see her go from a baby and a child into a young lady, at least that's what she tells me. It makes you think that you have to get involved if you have the experience and the ability to do that. So for me, I'm very fortunate that I've had a career working in communities all over the country, helping community leadership make decisions on land use planning, on zoning, permitting, transportation, all of the things that that are facing us and that we need to deal with. And it's a very unique skill set, but it happens to come in very handy if you want to run for city council and help your community. And so I absolutely am excited to be up here and be participating in this. I ask you to check me out if you have any question about my background or what I do. Please email me or give me a call. I try my best to get out and talk to everyone. I'm an equal opportunity talker and listener, so I work both sides of the aisle, so to speak, because that's the only way we're going to get anything done here. So I'd love to answer your questions, and if you like what you hear, I'd like to have your vote, and I will do a great job for you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. My name is Mark Metko, candidate for Post 3. Experience. We're facing a lot of issues within the city of Johns Creek. Most of you know about the divisiveness that occurs. We're very split right now for whatever reason, whether you feel there's issues with council or whether you feel that there's transportation issues. It's that experience for any candidate, especially the 3 of us that goes into Post 3, we're going to have to hit the ground running. And to learn along the way and try to get up to speed is a risk, especially if you're representing 80,000 residents. My experience and background, first from a family perspective, conservative values, registered Republican, and my community, my neighbors, aren't just 2 doors down from either side of me. That's why I'm running. I've been involved for the last 2.5 years, attending the council meetings, also part of, with Lenny, Citizens Advisory Committee, working on the 20-year comp plan. When you decide to run, you want to make sure that you first get engaged as best you can on committees. Also, as a former member of the JCCA board, you get to learn. So as you we go through the questions tonight, all I ask is, in your own minds, ask how. Not just talking about transportation problems, not just talking about residential problems or preserve Johns Creek. Ask each of the candidates in your mind how we're going to do it. Because at the end of the day, it's what the results counts, and that's where the experience counts. Thank you. I broke it. They know I can go longer than 3 minutes, 2 minutes. They have shut it down.
They got the right man for it, don't they? Yeah, they do.
Post 5, Stephanie Andres. We're going to have to, are we going to plug this or no? No. Go stand down here, please. You're the incumbent election.
Good evening, everybody. This is really refreshing. Over the last 10, 11 years, as the city's been a city, this is the most engaged I've seen any election. And I thank you all for coming out and taking the time to see this debate. My name is Stephanie Andres, and I'm running for re-election for Johns Creek City Council. And 2 years ago, I came before you, as some of you probably didn't know, making a lot of promises to you, asking you to support me so that I could effectively represent you. The platform centered around fiscal accountability. I'm an accountant, and so that comes to me by nature. I also was focused on supporting the comprehensive land use plan, as well as getting the residents involved, getting a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And I was blessed for you to allow me to be elected, and what I'm here to tell you is that I didn't just walk the walk. I followed through on the commitments that I made to you. I co-led an effort to go back to millage rate. It had started the year before I got on council, and last year we were able to successfully do that. At the same time, we reduced $1 million out of the budget. Every zoning case, I supported the comprehensive land use plan, except one where there was a lawsuit, and we couldn't do it. We lost the lawsuit. And I'm here to tell you that from a resident perspective, the city now has town halls to generically talk. When I first got on, I started having town halls myself. The council, the fall, started having them as well to go through T-Splosh, and now we're having them about road projects, just open town halls, as well as individuals are able to go to City Hall and to have meetings with city staff so that they can present to them issues and concerns and have their voice heard and their the items that they want to see changed. They're able to actually engage and be part of the process. And that to me is the most important, because that means the government is of the people, for the people, and by the people. Many folks asked me to run again, so I'm here to solidify those, to put in true fiscal management tools from the council as well as city staff, continue on our comprehensive land use plan, and to continue solidifying the residents to be the voice, to be in the system. So thank you so much.
My name is Chris Jackson. Thank you for having me. I see many of you have brought your own wine. That's pretty smart. We had a forum last week, and as I was leaving, a gentleman stopped me and he said, "Listen, I appreciate what you had to say. I appreciate the honesty, and I think you got some good leadership qualities, but I got to tell you something. We have a big task ahead of us, so I think we need a politician in office who knows the nuances." I thought about that. I shook his hand, thanked him for his comments. I got in my car, and I thought about that further. And I thought about that again today as I was driving in here, because I was trying to figure out what am I going to say for 2 minutes. I'm not a politician. I have been in politics for years. Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, City of Woodstock, to some extent here. But I'm not a politician. I'm a resident like you who has a passion, a desire, a will, and a want to serve and represent you in the best way possible. We have a daunting task in front of us. It's without question. I'm not going to say all the right things tonight. I'm probably not going to be the best speaker. I know I'm not going to be the best speaker. It's a little intimidating, but the fact of the matter is that we are at a point where we need leaders. We need leaders who work together. We need leaders who respect each other. We need leaders who can take your voice and provide solutions. If you want a politician, do not vote for me. If you want somebody who will lead with respect, earn respect, take your voice, make sure it's heard, and bust their ass for you, then vote for me. Thank you.
We'll let you speak last.
Sorry. Whatever you'd like.
All right. Good evening. I don't know, can you hear me without the mic or do I need the mic, guys?
You need the mic.
Okay. Hold up. There you go. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Israel, you talked about traffic and that being part of what you would like to see changed. It's definitely an issue all across North Fulton. How would you propose tackling traffic here in Johns Creek?
Yes, I did talk about traffic, and traffic is the number1 issue in Johns Creek, and like you said, actually all over Atlanta. And so, you know, as I've been walking around, I've asked people, what would you like to see improve? And they're like, traffic. Traffic, let's fix the intersections. Let's get the lights to coordinate. When the light is green, the next light needs to be green. That way you have a green wave of lights to go. And it also helps, if we do that, it helps with our safety, and it helps with our emissions, it helps with, and frustration. People are happier when they can get home quicker.
Follow-up question?
Oh,
yes, you talk about coordinating the lights, getting them green at the same time. Do you really think it's as simple as that?
No, it's not.
We have a multi-million-dollar traffic system that monitors it online, on real time. The problem has something to do with 65,000 cars on 141 area.
Oh, absolutely. It is not a simple solution. However, we have 75 lights in Johns Creek today, and we have 5 different systems. They don't talk to each other. So yes, we do have a multi-million-dollar system, but they don't talk to each other. So if they did talk to each other, maybe it would be a little better, 1. And then 2, there's other ways we can do it by repurposing lanes also. So there's not just one single solution, but you're right, it's not simple.
All right. Lindy, you have a 1 minute rebuttal.
So traffic, if anyone up here tells you they're going to solve traffic, they're lying. It's just not going to happen. But yes, signal timing would help get cars through the lights better, but it's not as simple as that. We have to work with our neighbors. Alpharetta comes into our, Foresight's coming into us. Gwinnett and Peachtree Corners all affect us. We have to work with our neighbors to plan. If we widen the road and they don't, you're getting bottlenecks. So that's part of it. We need to be looking at alternative solutions coming in the future, and we don't know what those are yet. Traffic is just such a big problem here. We have money. I was not supportive of the T-SPLOS when it came out, but we voted for it, so I'm going to work hard to try to find solutions. And what we're trying to do is look at the projects that we have put down, find out what they're going to do, what kind of solutions, what we can expect from them, how much traffic congestion, look at those, work with our residents to find the ones we want to do, and go forward with them. It's going to be exciting to tackle these issues, let's just say that.
Ms. Yang, your rebuttal.
It absolutely is not one person or one council that can solve everything, but you know what, we have to give it a try. I know that the residents have said we don't want to expand roads first. They want to work on signaling, they want to work on coordination, and they want to work on these intersections before we actually expand these roads. And that's why I say do this traffic first. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Zebrowski, what is your view on economic development in the city, and how important is it to try to equalize the tax base between commercial and residential?
We will never equalize that. We're 81% residential and 19% commercial. It is important to try to change that, maybe 1 or 2 percentage points. That might be enough. If not, I think someday we're going to have a serious conversation with residents about possibly raising taxes. So I think it's important to look at that. We've put an economic development plan in place. I think we need to try and see what happens. Look, I'm a resident. I'm also a business owner. I moved my business from Alpharetta into Johns Creek. I'm living and breathing what I'm trying to preach to you guys. It's very important to try to do that, but we have to do that as a community. I think our comp plan is going to help us get to that point, but we have an economic development plan that's in place, and I think we need to follow it.
Economic development is very important, and businesses, encouraging businesses to come in. You know, right now we are approximately 80%, 20%, and it is harder. I think I had a conversation earlier today about about the fact that if we don't do this, if we don't encourage businesses, we will not be able to sustain our tax base without raising taxes. And I don't think anyone wants to raise taxes. So what I really want us to do is really encourage businesses to come in, work on a good business plan so that they're not overtaxed and that they're going to want to come in and then reinvest in the city, because that's how we can actually encourage businesses and economic development.
MARTA, yes or no? Why?
Funny. I love you. I have not been a supporter of MARTA in the past, and here's why. We're paying a penny sales tax, and we're not receiving anything. When the T-Spots came up and they wanted to add more to that, and we still weren't going to get anything, I couldn't be supportive of that. I have recently asked us to get back to the table. We have to look at these things. I'm fine with MARTA if they want to come to us, but right now they're not here, so how can I say yes to something when they're not here? I'm open to it. Again, I'm going to go back to alternative solutions, autonomous vehicles and things. We have to look at all the solutions out there. We're back at the table. We're going to look at that and see, and we're going to have to come to an agreement with the community whether we're going to do that or not. But I'm open. I'm very open to it.
It goes back to my core principles of what the residents want. And the residents have not said that they wanted MARTA. If that's what they want, then we can put that on the table. But at this point, the residents do not want MARTA. And we already have the GTRA that comes in, the buses come in, and when you see those buses, they're empty. No one's using it. So MARTA is a great idea for those who are going to use it, but unfortunately, Johns Creek is not a community that is going to use MARTA.
Well, can you tell us what other transportation projects, what else would work here for our traffic and to help people get around?
Well, actually Lindy touched on some of the autonomous vehicles. There's also Uber and Lyft. They're actually making a big dent in and also moving people around. There's also the fact that we can carpool. And a lot of people are working from home. It's amazing how many people are working from home, and that's the ability that we have. Is now we have flexibility, work-life flexibility that we didn't have before.
Yeah, the best thing we can do is get people off the roads, getting to school and back. But there are new technologies out there coming up. We're on the forefront of that. I don't know if we're 1 year, 2 years away. Georgia Tech's doing some interesting things down on North Avenue that could be great. And our staff is actually looking into that with some of our signal timing and all that. So we've got to look at everything, but the key is we have to work together, get ourselves off the road, and we have to look at everything. And we're back at the table with transportation. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but it's important for us to be there. We're a community. And some people in our community do want MARTA, I would say. You got me.
I believe it's your question now again, Mr. But I'm not through with MARTA. You talk about autonomous vehicles, you talk about Uber and Lyft, you talk about working at home, but that's not really an option for about 90% of the people. We're looking at more and more cars. Is there any kind of other alternative transit that you would look at?
Well, I know that there's ride sharing. I know that when I worked at my last job in an office, we did a lot of ride sharing. We asked, there's always solutions, and if we get the residents, I'll be honest, I like to get the residents and have them pitch their ideas. You would be amazed at how many residents are so involved, and especially now, I'm looking around, and in the last 4 years, the involvement in Johns Creek is amazing. So, is it the only option is to say MARTA? It's not. I mean, there's other options. There's buses, which is MARTA, but I'm just saying we don't need the. I think people are confused with the high rails, the heavy rails, and I think that's where people do not want MARTA coming in. But MARTA is not going to come in MARTA's going to come in, yes, if the residents want it, but at this point, the residents don't want it, and I have to go back to my core principles of what the residents want.
One more follow-up, Ms. Yang. What we're electing you for is your ideas, not to take a poll of the residents. So what are your ideas to combat transit in our future? Traffic in our future.
Well, again, I'd like for us to fix our roadways. I'd like for us to be operationally safe. I would like for us to, get the green lights to all match up. I would like for us to just do what we think is best, and that is going to be using technology, that is going to be using the light system and coordinating it, and that is also to repurpose the lanes. Oh, yes.
Well, we're not going to be able to time our way out of our traffic problem, but we've had transportation meetings here recently. We came back to the table. Heavy rail is not the answer for us. We're not on 400 or 85, so we've got to look at other things. I love light rail. It's pretty expensive. Bus rapid transit seems to be the one that MARTA likes for us. I'd start with a parking ride. That'd be pretty nice for us to be able to just get down to the airport. Oh, you're already done? Did you sure? Check your watch.
And your rebuttal to Mr. Zebrowski.
Again, I know that we have to look at the low-hanging fruit first. I know you want more. If people want MARTA and people are going to ride it, then yes. But right now, Johns Creek does not have the amount of people that want to use MARTA.
All right, next question. Dr. Zebrowski, where do you see Johns Creek in the next decade? What do you see happening for the city?
So right now, we were just, as you may know, we were voted the 4th most livable city. So hoping that's going to continue year after year after year. We've had it the last couple of years. So that's where I want us to be. Really, the update to our comp plan is going to help define that, and it's been clear that our residents have said we want to remain the premier residential veteran community, not only in Georgia, but probably in the country. And I think these things show that we're very well viewed outside of both in our state and our country. So I think if we can maintain that, if we can find the right mix to help make this sustainable, we're doing some things on the council, 10-year financial plans. We're trying to make this place for future councils be able to pay to keep the city going. And once we get those foundations down, then we can start adding. And so I hope we're going to continue being the best schools, best place to live. I see us as a great city. We can always do better. But I see us staying on that. We have to maintain our schools. I think it's very important because our housing products are getting to be 20 years old. If our schools start slipping, I think we're going to see some issues. So I think that, again,
Could you repeat the question, please?
Just wondering where you see Johns Creek in the next decade.
I see Johns Creek as a wonderful city for families. Why we moved in here was for the families, for the schools, for the neighbors. That's what I see. You know why Johns Creek is so awesome? It's because of the residents. The residents have made Johns Creek fantastic. We are some of the smartest, some of the most intelligent, the motivated people in Atlanta. And we have continued to make Johns Creek great. So as long as we keep residents happy, people are moving in for that reason because they like the family environment. They like they love the schools. They love being in Johns Creek. And I see Johns Creek continuing to grow, planned growth. And I see Johns Creek as a wonderful city. And where we want to put our roots down. Yes.
45 seconds.
I will say I do think there's some areas for controlled economic development. I actually see us being a really big hub for healthcare. I think we have a great hospital here, and I think we have a plan that hopefully we'll put in place soon that might drive that. We have some technologies in healthcare and things that will make us great. It won't make us anything more than a great veteran community, but it'll add that little extra boost to us and hopefully make us a lot healthier as well. So I agree. I think we're in a great city, and I hope we're going to be there in a decade. I mean, you live here. Hopefully you'll stay here, and we all will. And hopefully our kids want to come back here, because that's the big thing. I'm not sure they are right now, but we need to make it so they are going to want to come back here and make this the community that we are. I'm very happy with our city. We can always do better as a council, but we're working on that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, your post one candidates. Post three will take the stage. Oh, I think this is where we do our drawing.
Oh, the drawing. Pocket.
Okay.
We're all a little new at this.
So I got 3 pieces of paper here, so pick one. You can't put your Superman on it. So just tell us what letters you have.
C.
A. D.
You're
B. A, B, C.
You'll start on.
So A, B, C.
Right.
Yeah, she's A on C, so you want A, B first? Patrick, A, B first?
A, B, C, that's all. Well, no, all three of you.
When people think of Johns Creek, what do you want them to think of the city's identity going forward?
For me, because of the work that I do, I focus a lot on substance rather than marketing, right? And what we kind of can say about ourselves. So I want to make sure that every award we win and everything we can say about ourselves from a marketing perspective is backed up with substance. And so in order to do that, we've got to find the right solutions for our issues, our transportation, as well as we've got an issue with an aging population. Where are they going to live, and are they going to stay here? And when they sell their houses, are we going to be able to sell them? There's a lot of that going on as well, and it's only going to get worse. So for me, it's about substance.
I would like to see us be considered the premier bedroom community when other communities maybe are pursuing higher density development, that we are able to maintain what's been great about Johns Creek. That to me is the identity, and that's what's made us have a high quality of life, the great schools, the high safety, the high quality of living. And so, to me, almost considered like a diamond in the rough in a sea of ever greater urbanization.
No, that's. She relates him now. You'll get the accent.
So going back to the substance piece, I want to see us be the benchmark for everybody else who wants to be a premier bedroom community. Not because we say we are, but because we have mastered our issues. We've done it in a phenomenal way, and everybody wants to come here and find out how we did it and use us as a benchmark for that.
Now this is your, you lead off. And I'm going to pick up on that. First, can you name me a premier bedroom community who does not have a strong, vibrant downtown and commercial atmosphere to complement that?
Well, I hate to say it, Hatcher, but I think Johns Creek is a prime example.
I mean, other than Johns Creek.
Okay.
We're a little prejudiced here.
Okay. I can't say that I can, but let me just talk about Johns Creek because that's what I know. Johns Creek is a financially stable and sustainable city. We went to the bond market for the first time for our parks bond. From both rating agencies, we got a AAA bond rating. We've been running a surplus. The premier bedroom community, to me, is really the goose that lays the golden eggs. That's what's making this a desirable place to live. That's what's making us have the high quality schools, the low crime, the high quality of life. I don't mind us having a vibrant downtown. I would like to see us get started on a city center. I would like to see us plant a seed and grow from there. What I don't want is to sacrifice what's made us great thus far at the expense of pursuing the other.
Mr. Vinco, your response.
To your question regarding?
Well, to his answer.
So I'm going to leverage off because you asked the question before. Identity. The most important thing for us as far as a Johns Creek community is seeing young high school students that had a good positive experience, this goes to the identity, that once they go back to college and they decide to start a family, that ideally they can identify with where they were raised and come back. That's the identity. We want to see Johns Creek grow. How? By 30 seconds. Okay, so this is a rebuttal. So with that, we want to see them come back. Then we want their parents get older. They may want to retain here to stay with, when they have kids, stay with the grandchildren, be part of the senior community that is developed. And we want to have an evolving cycle. That's the identity that I believe that we want for Johns Creek, because that just keeps going recurring and we continue to grow. And that generation then going forward will define the Johns Creek that they want to see when they live here in 20 years.
I would just say that, the identity of Johns Creek, and furthermore, the demographics of Johns Creek, we were blessed with a great citizenry before we became a city. We still have that. We had a fire truck come for our HOA's little back-to-school party. The leading cause of fire in other communities is smoking. In Johns Creek, it's lighting. So in other communities, it's man-made. Here in Johns Creek, it's from nature. That goes to the heart, I think. It's instructive of how just fundamental our demographics in that bedroom community. Who's on first in this post-Thursday?
Your turn.
Okay. New question?
New question.
Got it.
That's right, we'll come back to the show.
Okay.
I'm so glad we have the audience to keep this thing straight. Speak up, everybody.
We're good for you. Whichever way you guys want, go for it.
City charter was recently reviewed and changes were submitted for legislation. Term limits were not included in the proposed changes. Do you support term limits? How many terms do you feel would be appropriate and why?
First understanding, everyone probably knows this, but these council positions, including the mayor position, are part-time positions. They're not full-time positions. We do not do this for the pay. Any of us, we're doing it for the passion. As far as answering, Karen, your question directly, I do support term limits. And for me, it's not just for the city council seats or for the mayor's seat. On my platform, and I'm not trying to deviate, but even in HOAs, I've heard a lot from residents where HOAs, they feel they don't influence. And some board members on HOAs have been in there for 10, 12 years. We've had that where I live in St. Ives. I believe term limits even for HOAs. Now, how does that affect the city? I believe the city could come up, and these are just ideas to instill dialogue, with a homeowner's HOA Bill of Rights. Basic. I'm not talking about paint or architecture, but I'm talking about things like term limits that the city could support.
How many? I'm sorry, I want to back you up. How many? What's the term limit you would say would work? What
I would say 2 terms. I would say maximum 8 years. We want to keep new ideas coming in, so 2 terms of 4.
And I believe you rebut now.
Okay. Well, if you were here a couple debates ago, this will sound familiar. I agree with Mark. I could talk for 30 seconds and say the same thing.
Save us the time.
New question.
No, it's candidate Horton. Candidate Horton goes next.
Do we need Pachenik to run this thing?
The brothers as well. Do you favor incentives to commercial development for Flannery strip centers?
I'll answer it this way. I don't think we need to provide commercial incentives to help redevelop our strip centers. There are places in this country that need that in order to get the attention of developers because maybe their market's not big enough or there's a need to supplement what the developer's doing in order to get the developer motivated to do the project. I don't think that we need to do that here in Johns Creek, so I would not support that in general.
I would say that we want to make sure that we are making Johns Creek the most hospitable business environment possible. I think that we could look at lowering and streamlining our business taxes. I think that we could make it where, example, a restaurant, if they're paying for additional taxes on each bar, anything that we could do to level the playing field, I think that that would be a healthy thing. I think it's the same way with our residents. Anytime that we can make it easier to avoid a tax increase, whether it's backdoor tax increase or not, I think that that helps our residents stay in their homes, especially our seniors.
Sure. So if I understood the question correctly, it's about providing incentives to developers who want to redevelop our strip malls. So the answer around taxes and making them fair and equitable, that should be there anyway. That's not an incentive. So I stand by what I said.
Yeah.
No, that's not how it works. Last question.
I'm going to piggyback off that last question. Conversely, do you support a blight tax on developers and or homeowners that are not keeping up their property, not getting tenants in there, in strip centers and in residential?
So your question is, should there be a punitive tax when a home or a business stays empty?
Correct. Some other communities in Metro Atlanta have looked at that, have implemented that.
I have to say that's the first time I've heard about that. My inclination would be that as long as they are following the law as it's currently written, if they're maintaining their property, I would not be in favor of punishing someone because they want to leave their home or business vacant. I would think that they have every economic incentive.
Not vacant, but not kept up.
Kept up, not kept up, I feel very differently about. I mean, we have codes and they need to be enforced because that affects everyone and all of our neighbors. So that's a different story. I definitely believe that that should be, that we should hold them accountable to uphold our current standards.
Your rebuttal.
From my corporate experience, about 25, 30 years, you always are taught going through an escalation process. It's about communication. It's not just sending out a letter and say this has got to be done in an absolute, in 14 days or 30 days, whatever it is. An escalation process is very important. My family values go very deep, and I think we've always got to remember one thing. Unless we walk in another person's shoes, we don't know what that person is going through. Could be a sick family member, someone with a death or something like that. And those life-changing events do occur. So the escalation process allows you to engage them, talk to them, verbally, email, whatever it is. But then, if you're not getting a response, if you get that dismissive attitude, which unfortunately, that's why HOAs are created, sometimes people just dismiss you, you have to then take it to the next level. An escalation process would be the best way to go.
So I've been an HOA president, 2 different neighborhoods in Johns Creek. In Kingston Crossing, we had a neighbor that was kind of unpopular because he's kind of like a mad scientist. He did some brilliant things. He'd give you the shirt off his back, but he'd forget to cut his grass for months at a time. I kind of took rather than taking the Barney Fife approach, I took the Sheriff Taylor approach. And that seemed to be much more effective, and I think that that was very successful. That's just kind of anecdotal about the way I like to solve problems when possible, to go based on the human factor.
What was the approach? You cut his grass? I'm trying to figure out.
If I am elected city council person and there's someone that's not cutting the grass, I am not on the hook for cutting your grass.
Thank you. All right.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. One question that comes to mind immediately, a lot of cities are getting their own entertainment commissions, film commissions, because that is such a big business in the state. Is that something you would look to work on if elected?
Off the cuff, no. I don't know that if we're trying to be a premier bedroom community, I think you're changing the dynamic of the city as a whole. And I don't know that we want that in the city, because I mean, I've seen what's happened in South Atlanta and some other areas that they've gone crazy with this. And I understand that it brings new people in, but it also brings more traffic in and it brings more headaches, so no. Sorry for you to want it.
I don't think that that's our priority. Our priority is congestion relief and focusing our attention, time, and resources on addressing traffic. So if we were to start focusing on that, it would be a distraction to the things that we need to take care of, as well as economic development within our city. We already have defined areas where we want to go into. So I would hate to use that and bring something new that would be a complete distraction to the efforts that are already in place.
You know, the other thing with that is if you look at the cities that have invited that into their community, there's been incentives offered. I think if we're going to offer incentives, there's better ways to spend it than on that.
Andres? Do you support the idea of having an arts center, which would be more community-oriented?
Sure. Sure, if there's support for it in the community, I think an art center is a great thing to have. I just think that where the question comes in is who should financially support it. And right now our time and attention needs to be addressed because we've already defined. So if you look at our financials, we're already paying for transportation, public safety is our priority, parks is our priority. There isn't space in there unless we increase taxes. So absolutely, an art center is a great thing to have. It enhances the community because we want to maintain this premier residential bedroom community. So having extra amenities that help support that is great, but we need to have strong community, private community that's willing to fund it and support it so that it also will be successful as a place for other people to come outside of Johns Creek.
As a follow-up question, how about if the city were to donate some public land for that? That would be a start for this to coalesce around.
Well, again, where will the money come from to pay for that land? Because
land already owned.
So the only place that we can donate is Collie Creek, and right now Collie Creek is being looked at as parkland for fields and for green space. And so, you know, I think that it's what the priority is. Right now, the park bond has already defined Collie Creek as being true park space. So I don't think we could donate.
There's Collie Creek. There's city City Hall area, there's Shake Rag, there's
Well, Shake Rag Park is a school, and it's a small park that you could donate. There's not much there to donate, and plus, if I'm not mistaken, it's joint owned with Fulton County. Which one else did you say? Oh, the City Hall. Well, the City Hall building is on the City Hall, so
there's 20 acres there.
we would give them the City Hall, but then you have those lakes.
No, I'm not saying.
You're talking about TPA lakes? What are you talking about?
There's 20 acre linear park.
Well, the linear park has the lakes on it, so you'd have to fill in the water and make it solid ground. There isn't enough space on there to build a significant performing arts center that I'm aware of, the plans that I've seen. So
the lakes must be much bigger than I remember them. Oh.
What question am I answering? What do you want to hear?
Would you favor supporting the Arts Center with the donation of public money?
Absolutely. I'd love to have an arts center here. I said that in the first debate. You know, the question becomes priority of where the money should be going. I would love nothing more than an arts center to be here. I think it's the thing that is missing from this community, to be honest, one of the things, outside of really establishing a firm park system, a better park system. I would love to have that, but I don't, you know, if it was donated land, you know, maybe it's something you take a look at. I know that the $40 million in the park bonds, there's $4 million set aside for park acquisition, there's $4 million set aside for a rec center, there's land acquisition that goes anywhere from $4 to $25 million, depending on who you talk to, and Collie Creek is slated for anywhere from $12 to $16 million. Gotcha. So, I mean, if you can pull some of these monies aside and it makes sense for the community, why not look at it?
What's your position on T-Splost, and how do you see that best implemented here in Johns Creek?
Okay, so at 100% we get, I think, 82 million. 85% of that is about 69 million in tier 1 projects, and the other 15% is about another 13 million in tier 2 projects. I've gone to the meetings. I know we have another one Thursday. I think that we need to be taking a look at long-term solutions that work hand in hand with the communities around us. I think if all we're doing is providing solutions within our borders, we're not providing solutions, because it's not going to stop the traffic coming from the outside in. So I think we need to be looking at methods and ways of utilizing this money that will better enhance moving our people through the city. I know it took me 47 minutes to get here from Old Alabama today. Ridiculous. And I need you to fix that. All right.
Yeah, Mike.
Your position on T-Splost and how you feel that's best implemented here in Johns Creek.
Okay, so T-Splost was approved, right? So the money's already set aside, and then that referendum, it was already defined what the projects were to be worked on. So they're already defined, and we're looking at that to implement those projects starting with tier 1 and working through tier 2, tier 3. Basically what you need to do is you need to look at those projects now and figure out, because they weren't all specifically defined, so it's going through that priority list and defining what those improvements are going to look like, and making sure that from my perspective, we need to define the problem statement that we're trying to correct, create your benchmarks so that you know that that road project was successful, and move forward. We've already got projects. Barnwell Road is being worked on. That's T-Splost. We started the operational improvement review for Bell Road and Bowles Road, and there are a couple other projects that are already in place that are being worked on. So now we just systematically need to go through the projects that were defined and figure out specifically what that's going to look like in the time frame.
Can I follow up on that? Medlock Bridge and State Bridge is one of those tier 1 projects.
Yes.
Would you look at seeing that become 4 lanes?
It is 4 lanes.
Or 5 lanes of traffic?
You mean
6
3
lanes.
on each
Yeah,
side?
3 and 3.
So the issue.
Like, which one?
How much time do I have to answer this?
30 seconds.
Okay, so on Medlock Bridge, what's interesting is that if you go to 6 lanes and you've got literally have residences that are coming, especially south of States Bridge, you have residences coming out that can't get out on 4 lanes, and you can't put a light there either, as well as homes, not just subdivisions, but homes. So we need to be able to look at that. I personally don't support expanding it right now. Because there's too many unknowns about that project, and we need to specifically engage the residents in that area and look at how people are going to successfully navigate to get out on the road when they can't navigate now. So
I would agree with a lot of that. I don't support that at this point in time. I think that there are a lot of unknowns. If you're going from 6 lanes, if you're going down, you're going back into 4 lanes. So what happens when you get to the end? I also am not a big fan of just adding lanes for the sake of doing that because you invite more traffic. But if it's sometimes you have to because you got to move our people around. But I think that's one of those that's a big problem for this city, and I think we're just going to add more traffic by inviting more people to use those lanes. Until we can work with the communities around us and have a solid plan, I don't support that.
I'm going to ask you to look within yourself with this question. Me first? Yes. Okay. If you had to make one change to a decision that you made over the last years of your term, what would that be? Anything you would change about what you've done in office?
Over the last 18 months, I stand strongly on the principles that I believe in, and there's nothing that I would change at all.
Like that. Anything you would change about what she's done?
Yeah. Oh boy. You know, here's the thing. We've run a nice campaign with each other. I chose to run who I'm running against. One of the big reasons is I saw divisiveness in the city council. I saw people who weren't listening to each other. They were hearing each other, but they weren't listening. And there's a big difference. If you can't work together, you can't listen to each other, you can't respect each other, nothing gets accomplished. And personally, I felt, and I take it down this road, I felt like she was being divisive, and that is why I jumped into this race. Sorry.
Thanks for that. You guys are fun.
You don't have to apologize. To me, real dialogue means you have to have real conversation. It can't just be go along to get along. And so one of the main reasons I ran was because it was always go along to get along. There was very little solid dialogue on topics, and now there is. Because that dialogue comes with transparency. Sometimes it gets heated, sometimes it doesn't, because people are passionate about what they believe in. But at the end of the day, everybody sitting at the table is interested in what's best for Johns Creek and for the residents. Otherwise, why would we do this? And so that can be a perception. So thank you.
Your rebuttal.
No, I have no problem with constructive dialogue. It's the gotcha moments that are the things that are not healthy for a city. When you are trying to point out everybody else's imperfections, I think that becomes a divisive thing, and I think it hurts what you're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, that's all. You get a 2-minute opening statement, and then we're going to turn the cannons on.
Didn't I make my opening statement?
Yeah.
He did.
I don't think they want to hear it a second time.
I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Stephanie, and that is, over the course of your terms in office, name one thing or one decision that you wish you had not made that you would change.
I think it's less about the decisions that I've made. I think that there have been times that I've explained why I've made my decisions better than at other times. I think I've sat silent sometimes and just taken a vote. I think it's very difficult, given the amount of information that we're confronted with, to get that out to the citizenry. And I think it's been difficult sometimes for them to understand, for you all, to understand what goes behind the decision making. It seems easy, it seems cut and dry, and oftentimes we're in a box that you don't realize that legally we're in. And I think the most important thing we can do to protect you is to make decisions that are legally defensible. Because if we don't, there can be very bad repercussions from that.
Well, Mayor, since you have been in office for a while, you've worked with Fulton County's commission for quite a while. We have Fulton County Commissioner who's running for commission chair in the House, if he's still here, Rob Pitts. How do you plan to continue the communication with Fulton County for things that the city of Johns Creek needs and wants?
I think if I have a strength, it has been to form regional, national coalitions that benefit our city. There have been times that I haven't exactly had the best relationship with Fulton County, And usually it's because Fulton County was doing something pretty egregious. That's not been the case lately, with the exception of really screwing up our appraisals this year. And for a number of years. You know, Liz and I had the benefit of serving on the inaugural Johns Creek City Council. We served together when she was on the school board, and now we serve with her as one of our best commissioners on the Fulton County Commission. I think it's a matter of just maintaining open dialogue and recognizing that we each have different needs, and we have to figure out what each other needs and how to balance that.
Mr. Mayor, at the start of your last term, there was a lot of pomp and ceremony, a lot of enthusiasm for a city center. And I think there's a lot of blowback at the size and scope that seemed to be presented. Is that dead, or in your last term, will city center arise again in some other form?
So the pomp and circumstance was largely due to the misstatement of what I was saying. What I said was that we needed to create a city center, and that I thought it was important for that city center to have a level of vibrancy. That doesn't mean skyscrapers. That doesn't mean recreating a city that isn't proportionate for Johns Creek. It means recognizing that to have vibrancy, you have to recognize there are 3 windows of time that you need to create that vibrancy. 9 to 5, 5 to whenever in the evening, and on the weekends. And it requires different things to make those things happen. I think when you think about Duluth and Suwanee, those smaller scale residential downtowns, when you think of Sugar Hill minus some of their height, that's probably more appropriate for Johns Creek. Will I push for a city center? Absolutely, because I think it's the right thing for our city.
Bring it back to transit here. Let's talk MARTA for a second. Your thoughts on how, if ever, it could fit into the city.
Well, first of all, I think that we have to recognize we have a shorter-term problem, and that is that our roads are over capacity, and it's mostly caused not by our residents, but by the wonderful people that love to travel east and west, west and east, and south and south and north. We have to get folks out of their cars. We cannot continue this single occupancy vehicle model that Atlanta loves so much. But we also have to recognize that the transit topic is very complex in Metro Atlanta. Because we didn't develop around the train, like most major metropolitan areas, we don't have work centers that really have enough density to support the bigger modes of transit. So we need to rely on the future. The future is probably not transit as we know it today. It's different forms of transit. And so I've been investing my time in figuring out where is the puck going to be, as Wayne Gretzky used to say. And I'm hoping that Johns Creek will skate to where the puck's going to be, not continue to rely on the old traditions.
And talking business, getting businesses to choose Johns Creek as their home, the Amazons, the big companies that are looking to come into Metro Atlanta, how will you convince, what do we have that they would want to make this home?
I don't think anyone would know the answer to this question better than Vicki, actually, because it's what she does for a living. But let me tell you the problem with Johns Creek. It's not what we have, it's what we don't have. We're not within 45 minutes of the airport. We're not directly off of some form of transit. So those are the things that when they can't check that box, they stop looking at us. There are businesses that are a good fit for Johns Creek. They're not Amazon. They're not the big businesses. We're not going to be a corporate headquarters. We might be a regional hub, but we're not going to be a corporate headquarters. I think where we need to focus on is expanding the ones that are here, focusing on adding more people to the great companies that are already here, and then trying to find smaller corporations and get them to see the beauty of Johns Creek. Here's the reason to come here. Because the CEOs and the C-level executives want their family to participate in our great schools. And they want their family to live in this great community, and they want a short commute to work.
All right, I had a great question, and you made me forget it.
I'm bad that way, Hatcher. While he's thinking about it, can I just say that we ought to be thrilled, no offense to Hatcher, we have 2 Emmy Award-winning journalists here doing this tonight. If he went into TV, he could win an Emmy.
There you go.
I have a face for radio.
So do I.
I'm going to pass. You have a follow-up.
Okay, go ahead.
Just wanted to talk about citizens review, city charter. Would you support a citizen's review of the city charter? Why or why not?
Citizens review the city charter always. I think it's all in the process. It's a very expensive, long process to have to impanel a citizens panel. I think you also have to balance folks who are looking at it from one perspective with folks who actually have to live with the charter on a daily basis, whether it be our city employees or the elected officials. As it relates to the last one, I think there were ways that we could have done it better. And then if we go back all the way to the Charter Commission, I think there were ways that that could have been improved. And I think some blending of those two is probably the right answer for the future.
All right.
You got it now?
Yeah, I've got it now. We've spent thousands, if not millions of dollars on our intelligent transit system, yet traffic remains the biggest problem in the city. What is the failure in the Johns Creek Transportation Department?
You can't fit 10 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound bag. It's that simple. Medlock Bridge Road is designed for 35,000 cars. There are 70,000 traveling on it each day. You can't put 10 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound bag. Does that mean that we can't make improvements? Can the lights be better synced? Absolutely. So I'm going to say something that's very unpopular. You can't synchronize your way out of this problem. We're going to have to make improvements, but we can make those improvements contextually so that we recognize that there are people who live along that road and they need to be protected. There's a way to balance improving the road without screwing everyone that lives along it.
You talked about the balance of smart development, but also following the letter of the law. You've had situations where the city has been sued. Most recently, there was a cell tower company, and in an open meeting, you said, listen, guys, we have to vote this way. How do you balance the smart development, mixed development otherwise, with following the letter of the law?
Well, one, I think we're taking the most important step we possibly can. The best tool in the tool shed for setting yourself up to make different decisions is to have a stronger comp plan. And I commend the work that's been going on for almost a year now. It will be going on for a while longer of our Citizens Advisory Council, who will eventually make recommendations to the Planning Commission and the Council on revisions for the next however many decades of our comp plan. So that's the first thing. Second thing is we have to have a well-educated council to understand what are the zoning rules and what's the context under which we can make decisions so that our decisions will be legally defensible. And third, and most important, we've got to get our citizens up to speed. They're at a huge disadvantage when they come into each zoning case in terms of understanding how to articulate their argument so that they actually help us do what they want us to do. Unfortunately, we are the judge, and the only thing that we can judge is what's entered into evidence, and that's the opposition and the application. And that's got to be done well by our citizens.
Do you see that comp plan as being something that takes the guesswork out of what the council has to do, such as what they're doing in Sandy Springs, where it's almost a turnkey, where they have the rules set in front of them and they know exactly what they have to do in each case?
I don't think it can ever be that easy. The reality is that each set of circumstances is unique, and they're especially unique in Johns Creek because we don't have much land left to develop. And so what we're seeing is a trend of folks trying to shoehorn in too much density on the parcels that are left so they can try to maximize their profit. And so what we have to do is put a comp plan in place that sort of defines an upper limit that is legally defensible. So for example, if you say we're only going to allow 1 unit per acre, but it's in an area where we've already developed it at, let's say, 2 to 3 units per acre, that's not going to be legally defensible. We've got to find a way to push it down as far as we can, but make sure it's legally defensible.
Rebecca, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All the candidates would please come back up on stage. I'll take a point of privilege. First of all, I want to thank our student leadership. They did a great job. I want to thank especially Johns Creek Rotary Club and Mr. McDonald, because without their support, this would not have happened. And this turnout tells me that they've done a terrific job. And I especially want to thank Karen and Mike for added expertise and intelligence to this whole event. but the people I want you all to have the biggest round of applause for are these candidates who stood up. Thank you all very much, ladies and gentlemen.
30 seconds. What time are we going to? What was it scheduled?
8:30.
I'm gonna leave it up to you guys, but there's another 25 minutes, and I am gonna suggest if you want to take the other 25 minutes, figure out this audience questions or whatever, if they want, you know, it's up to them, but that's just, or longer closing statements.
Well, I'm not going there. If we want to do closing statements, that's great. We'll start with post 5 first. 1 minute.
Post 5?
We went last night until
So this is where you're supposed to give the statement that really brings it home. I'm going to do something different. One, because this thing is falling. I'm going to say thank you. This has been a wonderful experience for me so far. I appreciate those of you who have let me into your homes and talk with you. It has been enlightening. I have learned more about this city in the past 2 months than I probably would have learned in 10 years. And I am proud to call this place my home. And I hope that you will allow me to lead the next 4 years and represent you the best way I can. Thank you for having me.
I'm very thankful that you all came. I think this was a great, real debate, and I think you learned a lot about people. And what's great is that I truly believe that this is an interview because we work for you. We're your representative to represent your interests as it relates to the city. And as I said 2 years ago, I make commitments to you that, you know, I'm going to bring with me fiscal accountability. That's who I am. That's how everything comes down to dollars and cents and making sure that we're looking at projects and paying for them and correctly the first time, spending that dollar like we spend it at home. But also looking at our community to ensure that the community we have today is the same community that will be here for generations after we leave. And then making sure that you are the center of the conversation. You need representatives that are going to lead by example and that make sure that your interests are covered. And I've proven to do that over the last 18 months, and I commit to you that I will continue to do that because that's the dedication and passion that I have and why I'm running to represent you. So I hope I've earned your vote. If you have questions, please let me know after. Thank you so much.
Just go in reverse order how you went.
C's first. C. C.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm hoping with more questions that I will earn your vote. There was discussion about experience. Experience does make a difference. That's where I feel I differentiate myself from my opponents. The 2.5 years being honored, being a CAC member, attending the meetings, providing input, Noise Ordinance Committee as well, JCCA, former board member of the JCCA. Experience, but then here's another differentiator, approach. I want you to understand my approach. My approach is to come up with ideas, to instill dialogue. I don't dig my heels in the ground and say my idea is absolute and it's right. No. It's about listening at least 50% of the time and not talking more than 50% of the time. We've got to get input. The ideas that I talk about, go to my website, that's to instill that dialogue. That's how we got to get more residential input. That's where I came up with the residential nodes, and that's where it's all about, getting more input from you. Thank you.
I'll echo what everyone said. Thank you all for coming. It's wonderful to see everyone here. I hope that once we finalize the selection that we get this many folks to come to town hall meetings and workshops and things like that because we really need your input. And I feel very fortunate as I've been going around canvassing to be able to get people when they're home and talk to them and get their input. And I think it's critical that we keep doing that moving forward. I'm going to let my experience stand on its own. I have my commitment to the community of how I'm going to conduct myself, what my experience is, and where that came from. That's on my website. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I encourage you all to vote for the candidate that you feel most embodies what you're looking for in a council member. Thank you.
So I hope that my closing goes better than my intro. I was a nervous wreck, just to let you know. I'm running because I strongly believe that the residents of Johns Creek need an advocate for the residents. I've been an outspoken advocate for the residents over the last several years in Shake Rack so that we could prevent the creation of a large tournament facility. Along 141 in Jonesbridge so that we could offer alternative solutions to widening that protect our residential character and improve traffic. Getting some level of basic care from Macedonia Freed Slave Cemetery. On the billboards, helping to reduce those from 10 to 7. My name is John Bradbury. I'm here because I want to see the future of Johns Creek be the same quality of life that we've enjoyed the previous 10 years of our existence. Thank you. I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you all. We are
couple more.
I'm not the only one that's been nervous.
I guess I don't get to close.
Yeah, guess what? And then the mayor.
I can hear from you all.
Go for it, yeah. You want our vote?
Yeah. First, I just want to ask everyone to keep Alex's family in his prayers. I don't know the circumstances, what happened, but it sounds, whatever's going on, I think it took guts to do what he did, and whatever personal or professional it is, let's keep him in our prayers. Look, I've been serving you for 4 years. Anyone who's been to a meeting or watched a meeting knows that I can be very passionate. That means I care about this city. I care about you guys. I truly feel you're the best thing we have going for us. I listen to you. I don't always get it right, but I change when I'm wrong. And when you tell me I'm wrong, I've listened to that. I'll continue to do that. If that's what you're looking for in a councilman, I'm your choice. If not, then still vote for me. But thanks for coming, and I look forward to your vote on November 7th. Wonderful.
Thank you again. Thank you. Actually, this is it's amazing how many people have showed up and really wanted to get engaged. And I will tell you that I'm actually very much an introvert, so it is harder for me to get out there. But when I go out there, I have met so many nice people, and if anything, this has encouraged me to go out there and represent the people even more. People want a voice. People want to have solutions, and people really are excited about wanting the best for Johns Creek, and that's what's going on. And regardless of what side they're on, they all want the best for Johns Creek, and that's what I want. I want the best for Johns Creek, the solutions that we can provide, and if we can all work together, I think that's even better. So I'm looking forward to meeting more of you guys out there and answering questions and hoping that I can be your representative, and I'm looking forward to representing you, hopefully. So if you can, vote for me. Thanks.
Well, the last thing I thought I'd be doing tonight is thanking you for 4 more years. I thought I'd be asking you for your vote. I'd still love your vote, because you could vote for nobody. I do hope that whatever's going on with Alex, it's nothing too bad. We've been talking throughout the campaign. Alex and I have known each other actually for more than 15 years. I certainly want whatever's best for him and his family. More importantly, I want what's best for you and our community. It's been a humbling experience to serve as your inaugural mayor, to have had the opportunity to do that for 11 years at this point, and to have this opportunity to do it for 4 more for the last term that I'll have. I hope that for those of you who have not agreed with me, that you'll do one simple thing. Let's talk. Pick up the phone. Get to know me. There's a lot of people saying a lot of things about me. A lot of them have 4 letters. I think it's time as a community for us to come together, to find a way to partner, to work together, to get past differences and discuss policy. Let's stop name calling. Let's stop harassing, and let's start working together. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you all for coming, and remember, please vote. I think
Yeah, we need to try to keep everybody straight.